guys, Johnny V here from JV Design. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at painting this awesome J.Scott Campbell version of Black Widow, and this one is also sculpted by Francis Quez, which I've done a lot of his models before. Now I really like Quez's models because not only do they look fantastic and he has great detail, one of the things I love about them, I've painted a few before that are kind of dogs to put together. Quez always actually thinks about the painters as well, and they're really easy to put together, and that detail is incredible. So he's someone that I highly recommend, particularly if you're a huge fan of J.Scott Campbell or really like female models. But guys, come with me, we're going to look at how we painted Black Widow J.Scott Campbell version from Francis Quez. So the first thing I do on prep is get all my pieces together and then check them all over. Now, I don't have the capacity at the moment to do a lot of 3D printing, so I actually buy the files and then I get someone else to print them out for me. And then when I first get them, I give them a little bath in detergent, and then I make sure I get some IPA alcohol and give them a really good clean before all the sanding and filling. I then work out what areas need to be primed what colour, with a lot of my lighter colours or also reds and yellows being primed with white, and also my darker colours, and you can see here on the bodysuit, being primed in black. I'll also use grey for certain different areas on certain different models. Now after that, I like to go back and forward over the original image just to see if there's any inconsistencies or anything that I've missed, and then I have everything ready for the final paint job. So using the colours listed, I've stuck to my pretty simple formula of starting with a nice sort of medium tone underneath and then building all of my shadows and highlights through all of my skin tones. I do that on the face and of course also on the body in this particular one, and I'm going back and forth with the original image the whole time to make sure that I'm getting all of those shadows and highlights in the right area and that I'm sticking to the right tones. I'm also looking for some nice blush work in the cheeks, and in this case I've actually used some pastels in here to keep it nice and soft, and then I've gone back over it with the airbrush to blend it all in and have those cheeks look nice and just get everything blended perfectly. So we now have all of our skin tones laid out with our undercoats, shadows and highlights in all the skin areas. So we can see we have the hands, and then as we move to the face we can see that nice soft blush work through the cheeks. We can also see the shimmer effect on the eyelids as well, where I've used a little bit of metal coat. And I've also used a bit of white to get some really good highlights in the highest points of the face. We also come to the body as well, and we can see some high points through the chest area and everything going nicely into the shadows. So before I start on the hair, I like to get the eyes ready. And the first thing I do is blacken them out. And then what I tend to do is get a toothpick and sharpen up all of my shapes around the eye as well. So all I do is sharpen a toothpick, get all of my shapes right and correct, and then I use a Mecha color light grey. I don't use flat white, I like to get a light grey, and I try to get in to all the whites of the eyes and have her ready later on, after I've done the hair, to put all the detail in the eyes. Now it's time to start on Black Widow's awesome red hair, and what I've done is I've used 5 different colours here. It doesn't really matter which 5 colours, but we've gone from brightest to darkest, and then we've started to build our shadows and highlights with them. Now the first thing I have done here is use some airbrush putty to mask out all that detail work we've done on her face. And then I've actually just mixed up first a really nice pink for an undercoat and just matched it onto the real image for our first undercoat. So we've sprayed this pink, and we just take a fair bit of time just to airbrush and get a really nice base coat on that pink. From there we start to just build using those 5 colours and just build, and we get a little bit redder and we start to soften and we start to darken as we go, and we just look at all the different areas that we're working and make sure that I keep referring back to the original image to make sure that everything's looking really sharp. Now with Black Widow there's a lot of different comics that you'll see, and some of the areas you'll see that she has quite red hair, and I've gone for quite a flaming red hair, and I do darken that out. But rather than just go with that sort of ginger hair, I wanted a real red as such, more that Ariel from Little Mermaid look. So that's what we've gone with, and we've come out really good in the end. So we've just kept doing all of these shadows and highlights till we've got it at a really good point, and I think you'll find we've got that really nice vibrant look that we see on the comic book cover. After all those red shadows and highlights were in place, I also did some dry brushing in certain areas to bring out some highlights. And then what you can see is the final result. And the final result, we have all those dark shadows, the highlights, and I was really happy with the way that came out because it's very much the Black Widow that I wanted. I wanted that real flaming red hair. It's then time to come back and start detailing the eyes, and the first thing I do is get the darkest blue and put that on the outside of the iris and get all my shapes right. You can see what they look like there. Now from here I've then gone a little bit lighter and just left that little ring of darkness around with a little bit lighter throughout that iris. And then I've actually used a toothpick to sharpen up a few of my shapes, also to get some light colours in, and also to put the pupils and the specular highlights in place. Now from there we can see that everything's looking pretty good. I've also given the lips a little base coat so you can see what's going on there, and that'll have to be worked on. But the eyes are looking just as they should. Now when it comes to the lips, again we saw the original base coat on that, which is quite a light skin tone, and then I've just built different layers of reds to match the hair and also to put some streaks in there. Now her teeth are showing in this one as well, and again I've gone with that grey because white looks a little bit too stark, and I've just made sure I've taken my time, got my shapes again right with the toothpick, and put all the little streaks and everything we need for her lips. Now again, this is how everything looks and how everything's coming together. Here I hadn't put gloss coats on, so you can see it a little bit better in the video. In the final pictures it's a little bit harder because you've got a lot of light shining off. But here we can see everything's looking just as I wanted it to. Now this model of Black Widow also had some explosions coming out of her wristbands where I used some of these fluoro colours. And all I did was start with a nice light bright yellow, and I started building that around the white, and then I just started building my orange and also my fluoro red around them to give them that real sort of flame look. And then I had to really soften a lot of areas back using that white and making sure that they were really coming from that white to give that real explosion look. Now as we can see, everything looks pretty good. They look like explosions coming from those wrists, and as we pick them up front and back, I was very happy with the way that they came out. Pretty simple, but really fun to do. I really enjoyed working with those fluoro colours, and that was just something that looked great, and then I could move on to the rest of the arms. So it was now time for the really iconic bodysuit, so I just got some mask and put that over the skin tones, and then I also gave it a spray with your Vallejo black. The next thing I wanted to do was make sure that the bodysuit had a real high gloss to it. I wanted to have that really good high gloss look. And I really felt that for high gloss, nothing is better than from Mr. Hobby, this Mr. Color Spray number 46 if you're looking from it. Gives the highest gloss and dries hard, dries awesome. Now once that was fully dry, I used my Folk Art Gold and I masked everything out and gave it a spray. And because of that gloss black underneath, it came out really shiny, which was just the look I was after. I then started the exciting part of peeling back all of that mask, all of my Glad wrap, all of the different bits, and this is how it started to look. I was very happy with that once I pulled all the mask off. Obviously I have to do some touch-ups, but it looked just as I wanted it to, and I was very happy with that final result. Now I always like doing something a little bit different with the base, and this one was no exception. I kept the base as it was, and I went with an undercoat of pink, and that was mainly just because I wanted a bright red on top of that, and the red would look really, really vibrant over the top of that pink. So gave it a spray with the red, and as we can see here, the red, once dried, looked excellent. Now from here, what I did, on the original image, she's actually got the Kremlin in the background, so I created a stencil using my Cricut and made sure I stuck that stencil on, and I was very, very careful with that not to rip up any paint, and we can see what it actually looks like on the base. What I then did was use a darker red that we can see here, a gory red, and gave it a really light spray from the top, and I just softened it out towards the bottom. So after that process, we start to peel back the stencil, which was really fun to do, and we're left with a really nice little image of the Kremlin in the background, which looks a lot like the original image, but it's really soft on there, so it's a really subtle piece. Now after that, I just started sponging on the black areas. I didn't want to have a lot of brush strokes, so I just started softly using a sponge to put that on. So in the end, we're left with a nice contrasted red base, some black trim and also some black lettering, and now we're ready to put it all together and have a look at our final glamour shots. Guys, thanks so much for sticking with me today. If you really like what you see, please like and subscribe to the channel. Again, I only do this. This is a bit of a hobby. I don't have a lot of time to go with the algorithm, so any sort of extra likes I can get on there would be fantastic. I'd also love to see you put some stuff in the comment section. I always love to have a chat to people, so by all means, please put some comments, see what you think. If there was some tips that you got out of it, please let me know, or if there are things you think I can improve, also let me know. I'd love to have a chat to you. But until then, guys, be good, take care, and all the best. We'll see you soon.